Okay, so you sent me like a ton of stuff on these California wildfires, news articles, reports, even personal notes. I mean, we're talking about like a whole city on fire.
It is, it's an absolutely devastating situation.
Yeah, and the death toll is like still climbing, right?
Yeah, it's already at 24, which, I mean, that really kind of highlights how serious this is.
Thousands of people have been forced to evacuate their homes.
It is.
I mean, it's just insane. So
Yeah.
let's just dive in
Yeah.
and see what we can uncover, I guess, about the scale of this disaster, what might have caused it, the human cost, and like what's being done to help. I mean, the damage is unreal.
It is.
CBS News is painting this like grim picture of families returning to neighborhoods that are practically unrecognizable.
Right.
And the photos in Al Jazeera are even more striking. I mean, they have images of burned out homes and cars, entire streets just reduced to ash. It's something out of a nightmare.
You know, what's really interesting is that CBS News really emphasizes the psychological shock that comes with this kind of devastation.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about losing your home. It's about losing your sense of place.
Yeah.
You know, your community, your security.
Right. And Al Jazeera captures this so well, I think, with these little details like that just hit you in the gut, you know, like families had to flee their homes on trash day. Bins are overturned.
Wow.
Lives are completely disrupted. There's one photo of a street where all that's left are chimney stacks, these like lonely sentinels marking where houses used to be, you know?
It's true.
It just makes the scale of the loss so much more tangible, I think.
It really does. It's just a stark reminder of how quickly and unexpectedly disaster can strike. You know, one minute you're going about your daily routine and the next your entire world is just upside down.
And it's even more unsettling, I think, because no one seems to know exactly what sparked these fires.
Right.
The Times of India article points out that U.S. officials are basically clueless. They're suggesting possibilities like high winds, lightning, or even arson.
Right.
But nothing conclusive yet.
Yeah, this uncertainty adds another layer of stress for everyone involved, I think. You know,
Right.
it's human nature to want answers, to understand why something like this has happened. But with wildfires, the cause can remain a mystery for quite some time.
Yeah.
Al Jazeera does mention wind-driven embers as like a significant factor in spreading the flames.
Okay.
And this is something that might surprise you. These embers can travel for miles, landing on roofs and igniting homes far from the original fire line.
So even if you think you're safe because the fire is like a distance away, you could still be at risk.
You could.
That's terrifying.
Right.
It really makes you realize how unpredictable and how dangerous these fires can be.
Exactly. Embers are so difficult to control.
Yeah.
Which makes like containing these fires even more challenging.
Speaking of challenges, I mean, the human cost of these fires is just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
We know 24 people have died so far, but Al Jazeera goes beyond the statistics and tells the stories of some of the victims. And it's just suddenly those numbers become real people, you know?
It is.
With families and lives that have been cut tragically short.
Right. It's so important to remember that behind every statistic is a human story.
Yeah.
A life filled with experiences, relationships, and dreams.
Yeah.
These individual stories help us understand the true impact of this tragedy, I think.
Like, for instance, there's Randall Meode. He was 55, died trying to protect his Malibu home. They found him with his cat.
Oh, gosh.
It's just devastating.
Yeah.
And then there's Rory Sykes.
Right.
He was 32. He was a former child actor who was blind and had cerebral palsy.
Oh.
He was trapped in his home and couldn't escape the flames.
That's awful.
These stories highlight, I think, the vulnerability of individuals in the face of such overwhelming forces.
They do, and there are so many more. Delise Curry, a 95-year-old retired actress who died at home after her family dropped her off, not realizing how quickly that fire would spread.
It's just heartbreaking.
It is.
Each story is a reminder of the fragility of life, I think, and the indiscriminate nature of these disasters.
Yeah.
There's also Arthur Simoneau, 69, a self-described thrill seeker who died trying to save his home.
Wow.
And Victor Shaw, he was 66, who also lost his life defending his property from the flames. And then there's the story of Anthony Mitchell, he was 67, and his son Justin, who were trapped because of their limited mobility.
It's just a stark reminder that these events often disproportionately affect those who are already facing challenges, whether it's age, disability, or socioeconomic factors.
Yeah.
These stories really personalize the tragedy and make us think about the support systems that are needed for the most vulnerable members of our communities.
Absolutely. It makes you appreciate the efforts of those who are working tirelessly to provide aid and support during this crisis. It sounds like there's been a massive response from both the government and everyday citizens.
That's right. Al Jazeera reports that shelters have been overwhelmed with volunteers and donations.
Wow.
With many having to turn people away because they simply can't handle the volume of support pouring in.
That's incredible.
Impromptu aid centers are popping up everywhere,
Yeah.
and people are using social media platforms like TikTok to rally support and share vital information.
That's amazing to see. It sounds like the people of Los Angeles are really coming together in like a powerful way.
They are.
And it's not just grassroots efforts either. Senator Adam Schiff has been vocal in acknowledging the outpouring of support from everyday citizens,
Right.
providing a sense of unity and encouragement during this challenging time.
Absolutely. And on a larger scale, we have the government stepping in with significant resources. The Department of Defense article details the National Guard's involvement,
Okay.
with over 1,800 troops activated to assist with firefighting and support local law enforcement. They're using C-130 aircraft. These are large military transport planes equipped with special systems to drop fire retardant.
Wow.
Over the weekend alone, they flew 6 missions and dropped over 16,000 gallons of retardant.
That's a massive effort.
It is.
But it sounds like they're prepared to do even more if needed. The DoD article mentions that 500 active-duty Marines stationed at Camp Pendleton and 10 Navy helicopters with water-dropping capabilities are on standby, ready to be deployed if the situation demands it.
Wow.
It's a reminder of the scale and complexity of this crisis.
It's a truly multifaceted response, and the federal government is playing a crucial role as well. Al Jazeera reports that President Biden has authorized federal funding to cover a significant portion of the costs associated with the disaster for the next 180 days.
That's huge.
It is.
That's a game changer.
It is.
It frees up state and local resources to focus on the immediate needs of those affected by the fires.
Right.
And it shows that the federal government recognizes the severity of the situation and is committed to helping Los Angeles get back on its feet.
It's a critical lifeline for the city, but we also need to remember that federal funding is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
The recovery process will be long and complex with significant challenges ahead.
One of those challenges, and it's a big one, is the insurance crisis in California that Al Jazeera highlights. Apparently, even before these fires, many homeowners were struggling to find affordable coverage. Now, with these devastating losses, it's likely to become even harder and more expensive to insure homes in high-risk fire zones.
It's a deeply concerning situation as wildfires become more frequent and intense in California. Insurance companies are pulling out of the market or drastically raising their rates.
Yeah.
This leaves many homeowners in a precarious position, struggling to find coverage or facing exorbitant premiums they can't afford.
And then there's this thing called the FAIR Plan, which is California's government insurance program.
Right.
It's meant to be a safety net for those who can't find coverage in the private market.
Right.
But from what I'm reading in Al Jazeera, it sounds like a complicated and often inadequate solution.
The FAIR Plan is indeed complex and comes with its own set of challenges. It typically offers basic coverage, which often falls short of what's needed to fully rebuild a home, especially in areas with high property values. Navigating the bureaucracy and limitations of the FAIR Plan can be incredibly frustrating for homeowners who are already dealing with the trauma of losing their homes.
It's a difficult situation all around. And then there's this debate about whether insurance companies should be allowed to factor climate change into their rates, which adds another layer of complexity to the issue.
Yeah.
On the one hand, it seems logical that premiums should reflect the increasing risk of wildfires.
It does.
But on the other hand, it could make insurance completely unaffordable for many Californians, further exacerbating the existing inequalities.
It's a delicate balancing act. We need to find solutions that protect both homeowners and the insurance market while acknowledging the reality of climate change and its impact on wildfire risk.
So we have this immediate crisis with the fires themselves.
Right.
But then this whole other layer of long-term challenges around rebuilding insurance and the looming question of climate change. It's a complex web of interconnected issues.
And let's not forget the lingering question of what started these fires in the first place.
Right.
Was it simply a case of extreme weather conditions, as some have suggested, or are there deeper systemic issues at play?
That's a question we'll need to explore further, and I think it's important to also consider the psychological impact on the survivors.
Yes.
What kind of support is available for those dealing with the trauma of losing their homes and loved ones?
Absolutely. The mental and emotional scars of this disaster will likely linger for years to come, and addressing those needs is just as important as rebuilding homes and infrastructure.
Right.
It's about rebuilding lives and communities. And we also need to look at the broader implications for urban planning and disaster preparedness. Can cities like Los Angeles, with their dense populations and proximity to wildland areas, adapt to the growing threat of megafires?
Yeah.
These are all questions we need to grapple with as we move forward.
You're right. It's not just about responding to this immediate crisis. It's about learning from it and building a more resilient future.
Exactly.
But for now, let's shift our focus back to the immediate response efforts. How are the government and community coordinating their efforts? What are their priorities, and what are the biggest challenges they're facing?
Those are all excellent questions, and I think diving into those details will provide some valuable insights. I mean, it is truly heartwarming to see how people are stepping up to help their neighbors.
Yeah.
Al Jazeera reports that shelters are actually having to turn away volunteers and donations because they're so overwhelmed with support.
Oh, wow. That's remarkable. And it really speaks volumes, I think, about the spirit of this city.
It does.
And it's not just individuals either.
Right.
Al Jazeera highlights how Senator Adam Schiff is publicly acknowledging this incredible wave of support and encouraging everyone to stay strong.
Yeah.
It's that kind of leadership that can make a real difference in times of crisis.
Absolutely. A strong sense of community can be a powerful force in helping people cope and recover from trauma.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about the organized relief efforts as well.
Right.
We talked about the National Guard being activated,
Yeah.
which is a major undertaking. The Department of Defense article gives us some insight into just how extensive their involvement is.
Yeah.
Over 1,800 National Guard troops are on the ground, assisting with firefighting efforts and providing support to local law enforcement.
Wow, that's a huge number of personnel.
It is.
The DoD also mentions that they have C-130 aircraft, which are those large military transport planes equipped with specialized firefighting systems.
Yeah.
Apparently, they flew 6 missions over the weekend, dropping over 16,000 gallons of fire retardant.
Wow.
I can only imagine what it must be like to see these massive planes battling those infernos from the sky.
Yeah, it's a remarkable display of coordination and technology being used to combat these devastating fires.
And that's not all.
Right.
They also have helicopters, ground crews, and even military police helping to maintain order and security in the affected areas.
It's crucial to have those additional resources available, as these fires are incredibly unpredictable and can change direction rapidly.
Right.
And speaking of resources, we can't overlook the significant financial support that's been pledged.
Yeah.
Al Jazeera reports that President Biden has authorized federal funding to cover a substantial portion of the disaster-related costs for the next 180 days.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's a big relief for the city and the state.
It is. It allows them to focus on the immediate response and recovery efforts without having to worry about the enormous financial burden right now.
Exactly. And it shows, I think, that the federal government recognizes the severity of the situation and is committed to helping Los Angeles get back on its feet.
It's a critical step in ensuring that Los Angeles has the financial breathing room it needs to address the immediate crisis and begin the long road to recovery.
Yeah.
But as we've discussed, federal funding alone won't be enough.
Right.
There are long-term challenges, particularly the insurance crisis that Al Jazeera brought to light.
Right.
Many homeowners were already struggling to find affordable insurance before the fires, And now the situation is likely to worsen.
It's a deeply troubling situation.
It is.
Some major insurance companies are pulling out of the state altogether, citing the increasing risk of wildfires, and those that remain are significantly raising the rates.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, if people were having trouble getting coverage before the fires, what happens now?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
The insurance industry is grappling with the realities of climate change and the increasing frequency and intensity of wildfires in California.
Yeah.
They're having to reassess their risk and make difficult decisions about where they're willing to provide coverage.
Right.
And unfortunately, this often translates into higher premiums for homeowners, leaving many in a very precarious position.
And for those who can't find coverage in the traditional market, there's the FAIR Plan, California's government-backed insurance program.
Right.
But as we've touched upon, it's not a perfect solution.
No.
Al Jazeera paints a picture of a program that's often bureaucratic and doesn't always provide the coverage people need to fully rebuild their lives.
The FAIR Plan was designed as a safety net, a last resort for homeowners who can't secure coverage elsewhere. But it often falls short of meeting their needs, particularly when it comes to rebuilding in areas with high property values.
Yeah.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It's a difficult situation all around. And then there's the added debate about whether insurance companies should be allowed to factor climate change into their rate calculations.
Right.
It's a complex issue with valid arguments on both sides.
On one hand, it seems reasonable that insurance premiums should reflect the changing risk landscape.
Right.
If the likelihood of wildfires is increasing due to climate change, then premiums should adjust accordingly.
That makes sense from a business perspective.
Yeah.
But it also raises concerns about affordability and fairness.
It does.
If insurance becomes prohibitively expensive for many Californians,
Right.
it could create a situation where only the wealthy can afford to live in high-risk areas.
You're absolutely right. There's a real concern that factoring climate change into insurance rates could exacerbate existing inequalities and make it even harder for people to recover from disasters like these fires. It's a delicate balancing act, and we need to find solutions that ensure both the viability of the insurance market and the affordability of coverage for homeowners.
This whole conversation about insurance really highlights, I think, the long-term implications of these fires.
It does.
It's not just about the immediate devastation, it's about the ripple effects that will continue to impact people's lives for years to come.
You've hit the nail on the head. We're talking about the financial strain of rebuilding, the emotional toll of displacement and loss, and the uncertainty of what the future holds for these communities.
Yeah, and we can't forget about the psychological impact of these fires.
Right.
We've discussed, like, the physical and financial devastation, but it's essential to remember that there's a profound human toll as well.
Absolutely.
The trauma of losing your home, your community, your sense of security that can leave lasting scars.
It can.
It's hard to even imagine what it would be like to go through something like this.
Yeah.
Al Jazeera mentions that shelters are offering counseling and support services, which is a good start.
It is.
But I wonder what kind of longer-term support is available for survivors.
Right.
These are wounds that may take years to heal.
It's a crucial point that's often overlooked.
Yeah.
The mental health needs of disaster survivors are just as important as their physical and material needs.
Right.
We need to ensure that there are adequate resources and support systems in place to address the long-term psychological impact of these fires.
And while we're talking about the long term, I think we also need to consider the broader implications for urban planning and disaster preparedness.
Right.
Are cities like Los Angeles doing enough to prepare for these kinds of mega fires, which seem to be becoming more and more common?
Right.
Are we building communities that are truly resilient to these kinds of disasters?
It's a question we need to ask ourselves honestly.
Yeah.
As climate change continues to drive more extreme weather events,
Right.
we need to rethink how we design, build, and manage our cities.
Yeah.
Are we investing enough in fire prevention and mitigation strategies?
Right.
Are we educating residents about the risks and how to prepare for them?
These are all essential questions.
Yeah.
If Los Angeles, a city with vast resources and infrastructure, is struggling to cope with these fires,
Yeah.
what does that mean for other cities that might be even less prepared?
It's a sobering thought. These fires serve as a stark reminder that we need to take the threat of climate change seriously and start taking proactive steps to mitigate the risks.
Right.
This isn't just about California.
Yeah.
It's about the future of our planet.
I completely agree. It's a global issue that demands a global response.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, let's bring it back to Los Angeles. And the question that keeps coming up,
Yeah.
what sparked these fires in the first place?
You're right. We keep circling back to that question.
Yeah.
Was it simply a matter of extreme weather conditions, or were there other factors at play?
Yeah.
And if so, what can we learn from them?
Right.
The Times of India article mentions that U.S. officials are still investigating the cause, and they haven't ruled anything out.
It sounds like they're looking at everything from natural causes like lightning strikes to human factors, including accidental ignitions or even arson.
It's a complex investigation, and it will likely take time to reach a definitive conclusion.
Right.
But I think it's important to be patient and wait for the experts to complete their work.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we can certainly consider the various possibilities and what they might reveal about the interplay of natural forces and human actions.
And it's important to remember, I think, that the cause may not be a single event or factor.
You bring up a critical point.
It could be a confluence of circumstances.
Right.
A perfect storm that led to this disaster.
Wildfires are often the result of a complex web of factors. Climate change, creating hotter, drier conditions, strong winds that can rapidly spread flames, and human activities that can ignite those fires, whether intentionally or accidentally.
It's a complicated puzzle, and it's likely that the investigation will uncover multiple contributing factors.
And as you said earlier, understanding those underlying causes is essential for developing effective prevention and mitigation strategies.
Right.
We need to learn from this tragedy so we can prevent similar disasters from happening in the future.
I couldn't agree more. Unraveling the root causes is crucial for moving forward.
It is.
But even as we search for those answers, we can't lose sight of the human stories at the heart of this tragedy.
You're absolutely right. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the immense pain and loss that so many people are experiencing right now. Let's honor the memory of those who have lost their lives, and let's offer our unwavering support and compassion to those who are struggling to rebuild their lives and communities.
I mean, it's hard to fathom, like, the scale of loss and suffering these fires have caused.
It is.
It's just a stark reminder, I think, of how vulnerable we are to the forces of nature, even in a city like Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's true. And yet, amidst the devastation, we've also seen these remarkable displays of resilience and compassion.
Yeah.
The stories of neighbors helping neighbors, strangers offering aid, an entire city rallying around those who've lost everything. It's truly inspiring.
Al Jazeera really captures the sense of community, I think, and not just within Los Angeles, but people all over the country, even the world.
It is.
They mention donations pouring in, people opening their homes to evacuees, and social media being used to mobilize support and share vital information. It's a powerful reminder, I think, that even in the darkest of times, human kindness can really shine through.
What's so fascinating is how these acts of kindness and solidarity can transcend geographical boundaries.
Yeah.
It speaks to our shared humanity and our capacity for empathy in the face of suffering.
It gives you a sense of hope. It reminds you that even though we may be physically vulnerable, our strength lies in our collective spirit, our resilience, and our ability to support one another.
Yeah.
And it's that strength that will help Los Angeles heal and rebuild.
You're absolutely right. The road to recovery will be long and challenging.
Yeah.
But the human spirit is so incredibly resilient. We've faced adversity before, and we've always found a way to come out stronger on the other side.
I have no doubt that Los Angeles will do the same.
Yeah.
And perhaps these fires, as devastating as they've been, can serve as a catalyst for positive change,
I hope so.
Maybe they'll force us to reevaluate our relationship with the environment, to invest in more sustainable practices, and to create communities that are more resilient to the impacts of climate change.
It's a hopeful thought. Tragedy often has a way of shifting our perspectives
Right.
and prompting us to re-examine our priorities. We see this in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
People are grieving, they're angry, they're scared. But there's also this determination to learn from this experience and build a better future.
It's a reminder that even amidst immense loss and suffering,
Yeah.
there's always that glimmer of hope, a chance to create something positive out of the ashes.
Absolutely.
And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I think that's an important message to carry with us.
I agree. We've explored the immediate impact of these fires, the complex response efforts, the heartbreaking human stories, and the broader questions about insurance, climate change, and the future of our cities.
It's been a heavy conversation.
It has.
But an essential one, I think.
Absolutely.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has provided you with a deeper understanding of this complex and ever-evolving situation.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, but this is just the beginning.
It is.
We encourage you to continue exploring these issues, asking questions, and engaging in meaningful conversations about how we can create a more sustainable and resilient future for ourselves and generations to come.
Well said. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
And to the people of Los Angeles, our thoughts are with you stay strong. We're all rooting for you.